In the quiet farmlands of Willow Creek, Oregon, nestled between aging pine trees and wind-worn hills, there stood an old, locked barn. For over 3 decades, Martha Langley, now a silver-haired widow with gentle eyes and steady hands, had been forbidden from setting foot inside. It wasn't always this way. Back in 1978, when Martha and her husband Frank Langley first moved into the property, life buzzed with promise. They were newlyweds who bought the land as a blank canvas for their dreams. Frank had grown up on a farm and loved the idea of returning to his roots. Martha, a schoolteacher by trade, just wanted a peaceful place to raise a family. The barn came with the land. An enormous, weather-stained structure of redwood and rusted hinges. It stood slightly off from the house, looming silent and closed. From day one, Frank made one thing painfully clear. You're never to go inside that barn. That's my space. No exceptions. At first, Martha didn't question it. She was in love. She trusted him. Maybe he kept tools in there, or family heirlooms he wasn't ready to share. She figured he'd open up when the time was right. He never did. A locked door and growing distance, the years rolled by. Frank became a respected figure in the town, stoic, hard-working, but distant. Martha gave birth to 2 sons, Elliot and Jonah, who spent their childhood climbing trees, playing the field, and asking, always asking, "What's in the barn, Mom?" She could only shake her head. Your father doesn't allow anyone in. As time passed, the barn took on an almost mythical status in the family. Frank would disappear inside for hours, sometimes days, and emerge covered in dust and silence. No explanations, no discussions. The barn was his kingdom, and his prison, Martha's curiosity faded into something heavier, a quiet ache. Over time, she stopped asking. She filled her days with gardening, teaching part-time, and raising the boys. She loved her family, but there was always that one locked door in their life. And then, in the spring of 2015, Frank died. A heart attack in the field. Sudden. Alone. The key. He left no note, no final words. Just a stack of papers, a modest will, and a single iron key, labeled simply Barn. The first time Martha held it in her hand, she froze. It was heavier than she expected, cold like the man who once kept it secret. That night, she sat at the kitchen table, staring at the key long into the dark. She didn't sleep, entering the unknown. 2 weeks after the funeral, with Elliot and Jonah by her side, Martha stood before the barn's ancient door. Vines had crept up its sides. The wood groaned in the wind. The key slid into the lock with an unsettling ease, like the door had been waiting. With one turn, it clicked. The barn creaked open, and the stale breath of time met them. Inside was darkness, thick with dust. As their eyes adjusted, what they saw made Martha stumble back. It wasn't storage. It wasn't tools. It was a museum of secrecy. What was hidden, stacked along the back wall, were canvases, hundreds of them, wrapped in cloth, some nailed to the beams. There were sculptures, drawings, and old journals stacked waist-high, candles, brushes, oil paints long-dried, wooden mannequins half-carved, music sheets scattered across the floor. Frank had been an artist, a brilliant one. Martha dropped to her knees. Oh, my God! Each painting told a story, not of landscapes or still life, but of her. Her smile, her sorrow, her movements in the garden, her dancing in the kitchen when she thought no one was watching. One painting showed her crying quietly on their 10th anniversary. Another, holding baby Elliot. He had been watching her, documenting her life in strokes and shadows. A quiet obsession, a silent love, the secret life of Frank Langley. They uncovered over 400 pieces of art. None were signed. There were journals, too, some spanning back to the 1960s, filled with sketches, poems, and confessions. Frank had once studied at a fine art school in Chicago. A promising painter, he suffered a mental breakdown after being rejected by several galleries. In his shame, he buried his identity as an artist. His journals revealed a mind trapped between creation and control, passion and paranoia. He feared the world would never understand his work, or worse, ridicule it. He feared losing Martha's respect. He feared failure. So he locked it all away, healing through truth. For days, Martha read the journals and wandered the barn in awe. There was pain in those pages, yes, but also depth, longing, and fierce devotion. Frank had loved her deeply, perhaps more than he ever knew how to say. She cried for what was lost, for the conversations they never had, for the part of him he never shared. But she also felt a strange peace. The locked door in her marriage had opened, and behind it wasn't betrayal, but beauty. Sharing the legacy. Jonah, who had become a gallery curator in Portland, was speechless. Mom, this could change everything. This isn't just art. This is a time capsule. This is a soul laid bare. Together, they carefully cleaned the barn, cataloged each piece, and decided to share Frank's work with the world. They reached out to local museums and artists. One curator called it one of the most haunting and beautiful bodies of work we've ever seen. Within a year, the Langley exhibit opened at a major art gallery in Portland. Crowds came from across the state. Critics praised the emotional honesty of collection. A mysterious, reclusive painter, revealed posthumously by the wife he never let inside his studio. The story captured hearts. Full circle. Martha, now in her 70s, became a local icon. She gave interviews, spoke about grief, art, and forgiveness. But most of all, she spoke about listening, truly listening, to the silences between us. She renovated the barn into a community art space, naming it the Open Door Studio. Local children came to paint. Retired men and women came to sculpt. The once forbidden space became a sanctuary of expression and healing. Martha even took up painting herself. "It's never too late to start," she'd say, laughing softly. Epilogue, the portrait. One day, as she cleaned the last corner of the barn, she found a canvas face down beneath an old tarp. When she flipped it over, her breath caught. It was her. Not younger, not smiling, but now, wrinkled, wise, weathered, eyes full of loss and grace. Frank had painted her as she looked in the present. Though he had died before seeing her this way, how could he have known? She stared at the painting for a long time, then hung it on the front wall of the barn, the first thing anyone would see walking in. She titled it, Still Loved. Final words. Not all love is loud. Some is silent, hidden behind locked doors. But love, true love, finds a way to speak, even after death. Martha Langley learned that some secrets are not meant to keep us apart, but to bring us back home.